and welcome to a new edition of In the District. Today we're sitting down with District 34 Assembly member Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas. We'll discuss early beginnings and her priorities as we move through the state's budget process. I'm Brittany Aubain, and this program is brought to you from BronxNet's brand new Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx. Assembly member, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me.
Of course. So before we sat down, you got to have a really fun tour of our new studios. Tell me, what are your thoughts?
This place is incredible. It's just so wonderful to see this really important space in the community. I learned about all the alumni, all the young people that BronxNet works with, and the ways in which you foster the next generation of folks in journalism and broadcast. So it's really exciting, and I'm really happy to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you here. And I think something that you brought up that was really important is kind of fostering the next generation. So can we just talk a little bit about, the importance of having a space like this in the South Bronx, that, we are fostering the next media cohort?
I know South Bronx faced some of the biggest disparities. I really specialize in healthcare, and particularly in healthcare, we see those disparities, but we also see those disparities in education and other ways. And it's important to build places like this, studios and places where young people can come and learn and be educated about this career and this business and create opportunities to get in front of the cameras. That creates the opportunities to see people in these jobs, right? If you can't see it, you can't be it. So to have seeing folks like you and others in these positions and get mentored and trained, it's really just wonderful. I want one of these in Queens.
Oh, that's amazing. And not only media jobs and media careers, but I think as the world continues to move into more technological space and a digital space, media literacy is something that we need to learn, right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people are still kind of struggling with that today, whether it's through social media. Media literacy is something that's just so important. So can you just discuss a little bit about how important that is to have that here in the Bronx and even in your district, the importance of that?
It's really important. The areas like the Bronx and even Queens, we see high rates of newcomers to this area. I have a large immigrant working class district, and it's really critical to have folks understand media literacy, get connected to the opportunities to be in this industry. I represent a district that speaks nearly 200 languages, and we know there's very robust, important media spaces that are out there in these multiple languages. So it's important to have folks who are trained and educated and ready to join the careers in this industry. So again, wonderful to be here in the South Bronx and to have these opportunities for students across the city so that they can gain both the media literacy and the career development.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're so happy to have you here. So with that, let's talk a little bit about you and your work as an assembly member. So for those who may not know, can you discuss a little bit about what an assembly member is? What does that position entail? How does that impact the community?
Great. Every assembly member in New York represents about 135,000 people. I represent the amazing communities in Queens called Jackson Heights, East Elmhurst, Corona, Woodside, and Astoria. And my job is to be the ear on the ground, right? Understand the needs of the community and advocate for laws and policies that will help serve our community back in Queens. As a state assembly member, any law or bill that you get passed actually impacts the entire state. But of course, those of us that are, voted in to represent a district, our biggest responsibility is our constituents in our district, but our impact could be fully statewide. So we look at everything from education to healthcare to workforce development to housing. Numerous issues fall under the state laws, and those are our responsibility to make sure that we're advocating for our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And before running for office, you served 13 years in a leadership position for the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice. So how did your time there kind of teach you and influence you in your work as an assembly member?
I think it's really important to have elected officials work in industries like advocacy, nonprofit management. In the nonprofit sector, we work directly with communities most impacted by the laws that lawmakers pass. So at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Justice, we did three things. We did community organizing and mobilizing. We wanted the Latino community to understand that they have power and they have voice. We also did policy advocacy, so to make sure that we translate that power and that voice from the community into policy change. And then we did communications and culture shift. We wanted to make sure we were creating spaces for Latinas, Latinos, Latina folks to talk about reproductive health and rights, something often shunned in our Latino communities. So we did all three. It was really important. You couldn't do one piece of that work without another, but that experience as an executive director, of someone who worked directly with communities to understand the barriers that they face in terms of accessing healthcare, looking at issues around the lens of gender justice and immigration and all the overlaying conditions that many Latinos and Latinx folks face was really important to be a better elected official, because I have a district that is predominantly Latino, Latinx, and it's really important that I've already been clued in and connected to the work that's happening, the needs that I need to elevate, and the community organizing that's happening, right? We don't do this job alone. It is about connecting to the communities most impacted and really elevating their voice to the state capitol, but to work alongside them and advocating for policies that will best impact their lives. So I think being an executive director, being in the nonprofit sector, and being connected to the community really helps me be a better advocate for the neighborhood.
100%. You said it best. When you're in that community and you're in that space, it only makes your work that much stronger. So with that, as you mentioned, you cover the communities including Astoria, Corona, East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and Woodside in Queens. So are there any positive or negative things you want to share with our viewers that are happening in the community right now?
I love my community. I am so blessed to represent a powerful, diverse, vibrant community. It is largely a working class district, a large immigrant population, and a district that has contributed so much to both the city and the state. We were often referred to as the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, because the Elmhurst Hospital is just blocks out of my district, but certainly was serving so many that were impacted by COVID. But a lot of the issues I fight for is what our community had been dealing with. So some of the challenges we face is around health inequities, is about gentrification and the housing crisis. It is about food insecurity and the struggles that folks are facing in terms of just being able to put a meal on their table. So those are some of the issues that I am such a big champion for, as well as education and so many other areas. I'm also a mom, so I know what it's like to be a parent in the neighborhood and in the school district. So those are the experience that my community informs me about, so I can be a better advocate. But let me tell you, I know we're in the Bronx, but we have the best restaurants in Queens, and some of the best restaurant workers, and some wonderful cultural sites. And I have to say, my neighborhood is very politically active, and we have such a diverse and strong immigrant population. So I'm running around to everything from events from the Peruvian community to the Bengali community to the Arab community to the Greek community. So it's just so wonderful to get connected and really understand the culture that makes our community so vibrant.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that you mentioned, with COVID hit your community very hard. And it's crazy to think that we're coming up on the 4-year anniversary. It feels like so much time, but no time has passed at all. But you're very, very passionate about restoring your community.
Yes.
And one way you're doing that is with the One Fair Wage Bill. So you stand very firm on building up the community, and that includes restaurant workers. So at the moment, 53% of the industry contemplates leaving, and 70% of that group cites low wages. So you're advocating for the One Fair Wage Bill, which will fairly compensate these tipped workers. So if this is passed, how does this bill come through fruition? What does it entail?
The first thing I want to underscore is something I just said. I have the best restaurants in my district. So I am a huge champion for our small businesses. You can name a country and I can bring you to its food. And we want to make sure those restaurants have happy workers that can provide for their own families. Right now, we had been fighting for an increase in the minimum wage in the state. We were successful last year to be able to increase the minimum wage in New York City from $15 to $16 this year, and then it'll be $17, over the course of 2 more years. So we're gradually increasing the minimum wage. Unfortunately, restaurant workers are not included in that wage growth. They earn $10.65 as of January 1st this year, and the expectation is that they make up that difference between the sub-minimum wage of $10.65 to what they should be getting, $16 with tips. Now, we have restaurants that range from fine dining to Denny's and diners, right?
Yeah.
So not every worker is able to earn those high tips. And what we want to do is just raise the floor, say every worker should make at least the minimum wage, and then it's tips on top.
Yeah.
So it's really important, and we're really mindful of the needs of the restaurant owners. And if the bill passes tomorrow, they're not going to get slammed with a big increase. It'll be gradually over time to get to the minimum wage, but at least the workers can depend on a paycheck that allows them to put food on the table. 18% of restaurant workers in New York depend on SNAP. SNAP are food stamps.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, the people that are literally putting food on your table as a customer cannot put food on their own table.
Yeah.
So that's an inequity we have to address, and it disproportionately impacts women of color.
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about how maybe restaurant patrons can help maybe bring this bill to fruition, or what can they start doing now to support restaurant workers?
So certainly tip. Tipping is always really important. But in support of the bill, I encourage all patrons to speak to their assembly members, make sure they're on the bill, speak to their senators to make sure they're on the bill, but also talk to the workers, hear their stories. Again, I patronize so many restaurants. I am a pretty terrible cook, if I cook at all, so I am a big supporter of our restaurant industry. But I do get to talk to the waiters and the wait staff and get a sense of their lived realities. So it's important to have those conversations, to advocate to get their members on the bill. And if you go to onefairwage.org, you can sign a petition in support.
That's amazing, and I think that's a great place to leave it before we head to break, so thank you.
Great. Thank you.
It's time to take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas. Stay tuned.
Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Adding your own flavor to fashion comes with age.
Okay, Dad, look at you.
Yeah, welcome. Hi.
Forgetting how to add doesn't. Finding it difficult to work with numbers may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Dad, are you okay?
An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's. Some things come with age, some others don't.
You know, how you feel on the inside is just as important to me as how you feel on the outside.
Oh, Daddy. I'm grown up, is there in every way, care and take care of you. You're my grown up, and I know you're there. I'm your grown up, and you know I care. 'Cause it's you and me and me and you. So when you are okay or not okay, I'll take care of you.
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because I felt like a failure. And then I realized, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Welcome back. You're watching a new edition of In the District with District 34 Assembly Member Jessica Gonzalez-Rojas. So we last left off talking about the restaurant workers and just, some unfair wages. And something that you brought up was about the SNAP benefits, right? So let's get into that. Currently, 2.9 million New Yorkers, including 851,000 children, are enrolled in SNAP benefits. So for those who are not aware, what are SNAP benefits and how do they assist the community?
So SNAP benefits is one of the most successful programs to alleviate hunger in New York State and across the country. It is what we know often as food stamps, but it provides folks the tools, usually on an EBT card, like a credit card, to purchase the food that they want for their families and for their homes. Right now, New York is facing 1 in 4 New Yorkers are facing hunger, and that's by a Department of Health report that just came out very recently. So we are seeing a hunger crisis. We saw it during COVID, and it's continuing to escalate. So right now, we want to ensure that people who are eligible SNAP can get it, but the problem is that the minimum benefit is $23 a month. $23 could barely buy a few dozen eggs. Inflation has increased food prices across the state and across the city, and we want to ensure that people can utilize their SNAP benefits to ensure that they are provided with healthy meals. Bronx in particular has some of the highest rates of food insecurity. So I have a bill that would raise the minimum benefit from $23 a month to $100 a month, at least. And again, a lot of the benefits you receive, it depends on your income and your family size. But New Jersey just did it. They increased their SNAP benefit from $23 to $95. So we can certainly do that in New York. And again, it is one of the most effective programs to address hunger. And remember, the money for SNAP, most folks go to their bodegas, they go to their local restaurants. The money goes right back into our communities.
You know, I want to get into that $23 a month because when I was, looking into it and doing some research, there were also some other people who were a little confused.
Yeah.
$23 for the month to buy your groceries. I mean, and can you just explain exactly what can somebody get with $23? It's not like a point system where it's like, well, this amount of stuff is $1. Can you just explain the $23 and just the skyrocketing grocery prices that we're seeing right now and how that doesn't really add up?
$23 does not feed a family, certainly. And I looked at the price of eggs recently. It is nearly $6 for a dozen eggs. And it's such a basic staple in so many families' lives, and it really doesn't cover the increased cost of living here in New York City and New York State. So we really need to raise the threshold to make sure at least those families are getting $100. Many do, right? Again, it depends on your income and the household size, but the $23 is insufficient really to last an entire month. Some folks can barely get through a day if they have to buy all their meals in a day for $23, so let alone a month. So this is about addressing food insecurity and about putting those dollars back into our community. So the Grocers Association, the Restaurants Associations, many of them support this bill because we know it goes right back into these industries that help feed our communities.
Of course. And so, like you also mentioned, New Jersey just did it. They went from $23 to $95 a month. Can you talk about maybe what the struggle is to be able to raise this price and to be able to raise this budget? Because wages are not increasing, but grocery prices are. So where is that dynamic not working? What are some of the challenges you're running into?
Well, SNAP is largely a federal program. And during the pandemic, they provided a boost in benefits to the families that were receiving SNAP. So many of our families got used to a little extra dollars to buy groceries. That benefit ended last year. So all of a sudden, they just fell off a cliff where the benefits were reduced down to $23. So this is something where the state has a moral obligation to step in and help out. So what we're proposing is that the state would make up whatever that difference is. Again, some people will be getting $23 in a month, some could be getting $54 a month, some could be getting $80, but the state would be responsible for making the difference so that the minimum benefit, the bare minimum, is at least $100. So it will be a state responsibility versus a federal responsibility, but it is a moral obligation, and that's our job as members of the Assembly and of the legislature to fight for our communities, for the resources to alleviate them from poverty.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I want to kind of ask, because this isn't going to happen overnight, this change possibly can't happen overnight. So in the time being, how can community members get involved to help out and fight hunger and food insecurity, whether it's in the Bronx or in your district? How can community members help out?
It is really about, speaking out. A lot of it is about contacting your assembly members, contacting your state senators, writing a letter to Governor Hochul, emailing, calling. There's so many ways folks can get involved. You talk about the district here in the Bronx, also in my neighborhood. this is an issue we see over and over again. We see long lines at the pantries. We see families struggling to eat, to make ends meet. We see, again, the Bronx being some of the most hardest hit with food insecurity. But again, folks that are directly impacted by the failures of policy often have the best voice and the most powerful stories to fight against it and make sure that we're getting this minimum benefit increase. So everyone's story is powerful. Please contact your elected officials. There's going to be a theme here around raising your voice. I love hearing from my community members. It really helps drive my activism and the issues I'm fighting for. But certainly every elected needs to hear from their community members. So please, I ask your audience to reach out to their elected officials and to the governor to say this is important to them.
So the call to action here is to reach out, to use your voice, to call your assembly members, to call your elected officials.
Exactly.
I think if you take anything away from this special, it should be that. To use your voice, everybody can be an advocate.
And that's my advocacy background. So I come as an advocate. I will continue to be an advocate in the state assembly, but it really is working directly with community and making sure that they know that their voices, their story, their demands are very powerful.
Absolutely. And so when it comes to food, that's only one part of people's health and the daily health, right? So if you're not eating the best, your health outcomes are not going to be the best. And in an area where a lot of people are uninsured and New Yorkers are uninsured, it just continues to be almost like a downhill slope for people, right? So let's talk about the coverage for all bill. To start off, just for our viewers, do you have maybe an estimate of how many people or families in your district are uninsured?
So we know with the coverage for all bill, there's a couple background pieces of information that are really important. New York State actually covers a child's health coverage from 0 to 18, right? No matter immigration status. As soon as they turn 19, they lose their health coverage. We fought over the years to, get undocumented people covered. That's the coverage for all bill. We were able to get folks 65 and over and pregnant people within a year of postpartum. There's still a gap of folks. So if you're not 65 and older, you're not pregnant, and you're over the age of 19, the undocumented community is not covered, is not able to get health insurance. That's about 150,000 New Yorkers. So the coverage for all bill would simply ask for the governor to pull down a federal waiver. It's called the 1332 waiver, and allow us to draw down federal dollars to ensure that every single person, no matter immigration status, can enroll in health coverage. This will get people out of the emergency rooms, because we know what happens in our communities. When someone does not have health care, they often wait till the worst moment, go to the emergency room. Then we're using emergency Medicaid, which the New York State is paying about $500 million in emergency Medicaid to cover issues, health concerns that could have been addressed by preventative care if they were able to get health insurance. So it not only leads to better health outcomes, it also saves the state money and uses federal dollars. So that is a bill that we are fighting really hard for. We have a Bronx state senator as the champion in the state Senate, Senator Gustavo Rivera, and then I'm the carrier in the assembly. But we have so many members across not just the Bronx and the city, but across the state that are advocating for this bill.
Yeah, absolutely. And you specifically, you believe that healthcare is a right, not a luxury, which is something that a lot of people are fighting for. So can you just stress the importance for healthcare and for full coverage, right? Because a lot of times we see that you may have insurance, but it doesn't cover much. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So can you just kind of discuss the importance for major coverage health care?
Preventative care is key. Again, here in the Bronx, we have some of the highest asthma rates. If we're able to catch it early, diagnose it early, make sure folks get the right tools and medications and resources that they need to maintain their health, it's really important that they catch that early so that we can prevent a larger disparity later in life. And that health insurance coverage means that they can go to the doctor early. That means they can get dental care. That means they can get full range of care, as opposed to, again, waiting to the last moment until they're in crisis to go to the emergency room. Many undocumented immigrants fear using certain systems, so we want to make sure that we could say, you are worthy of health coverage, your health matters to us, and we want to make sure you're able to enroll in an affordable or free plan so that not just you, but your entire family could be healthy. And it's just really critical to the health and well-being of communities. If COVID taught us anything, it taught us that your health and my health and the community's health is inextricably linked. So health matters not just for the individual and the family, but the entire community.
Well, Assembly Member, you know, it's very, very evident that you're advocating for a lot of different causes that are going to greatly impact the community if they do come to fruition. But let's get to know you a little bit outside of your role as an Assembly Member. So first off, let's just say, what piqued your interest in politics in the first place?
Well, I've always cared about my community. I live in an amazing community in Jackson Heights. We have, again, a really powerful immigrant population. I was one of the founding board members of an organization called New Immigrant Community Empowerment. My father's from a little country called Paraguay. My mom is Puerto Rican. So racial justice, immigrant justice, and my identity as a woman has really fueled my activism. And working in the nonprofit sector, in the gender justice sector, and racial justice has been really important to me. And honestly, it was my community that asked me to run. I live in a district that elected Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We elected so many amazing, bold Latinas to higher office. And when folks looked at, some of the gaps, they were like, you should run. And, it took a while. It takes about 10 times for a woman to be asked to run before we actually say yes. But it was really an honor to be asked and awesome responsibility. So I ran in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, and I was really lucky to have, again, this amazing support of my community. So I feel a deep sense of responsibility to advocate for the community. But it was really my love and commitment to the Latino, Latinx community and to the immigrant population to fight for these issues at a different level.
And here you are.
Here I am.
With that, we want to thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So again, thanks everyone for watching. And remember, you can always watch this program anytime, anywhere on BronxNet.org and YouTube. While you're there, be sure to follow BronxNet on social media to find out who will be the next leader we will sit down with on In the District from BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx. I'm Brittany Aubain. Talk soon.